So you want to learn React Native? Well, you've come to the right place because I'm going to show you how you can build the stock market application that you see on your screen right now. We're first going to go through the different features of the app, and then I'm going to show you how you can build it. So without further ado, let's get into the home screen and what it has to offer. So starting up top, we give the users the ability to search for whatever companies they wish. So perhaps they want to search for NVIDIA. Well, they just need to type it in and it will autocomplete to NVIDIA. Then they can click on this and it'll show the current price as well as the price history for that stock. And if they scroll down, they'll be able to see different information about the stock, such as the exchange it's on, which sector it's in, and the industry, and etc. Then they can click on the historical metrics to view the different financial metrics of the company over the past 5 years. And we also give the user the ability to like or dislike a certain company. So I just disliked, I'll like it again, and we can go back and go back again. And whichever companies that the user has liked, it'll show up on this watch list screen. And from here, they can either click into it like this, or they can delete it. Now, going back to the home screen, this is just a list of all the available stocks. So quite similar to what is coming up for the results here whenever a user searches for a stock, as well as the watch list. So that is pretty much all of the features of the app. Let's get started in building this thing out. Now, before getting started, you're going to need to have Node.js installed on your computer, as well as Watchman if you're on a Linux or Mac. But once you have those installed, you just need to open up your terminal, or if you're on Windows, go to PowerShell, or you can even go to VS Code and simply hit Control tilde, and it will bring up the terminal for you. But once you're there, you need to run the following command, which is npx create expo app, and then put the -- template at the end. For the template, we're going to choose navigation with TypeScript. What is your app named? I'm going to call it stocks. And while that's loading, if you don't have it already, you need to install Expo Go onto your mobile device, and you can easily find that in the App Store. So just type in Expo and it'll probably come up. So just make sure to have that installed. Now you can change directories into whatever you called your project. And from here, we just need to run the following command of npx expo start, and that will start up the development server on our local machine. And we just need to use our camera to highlight over this or view this, and then it will open in the Expo Go app. So I'm going to do that. And here we have the basic app template. So we have tab 1 and tab 2. And on the first tab, if you click on the icon in the upper right corner, you'll get this modal screen. So we're going to make use of all these different screens. And really what we need to go and do is go into your favorite code editor and open up the project. So I'm going to be using VS Code for this. Now from here, we can look at our different files, and we're actually going to be getting rid of some of the files within it. But this is where the majority of our code will be going, is in this app folder. And what I just did is I closed down my server, so I'm going to open it, or rather restart it within VS Code, just because I like everything in this one central spot. So how you do that, again, is just npx expo start. And I think it would be helpful to go over navigation and how that relates to the project structure. So let's go over that real quickly. So whenever you're looking at the project structure, you'll notice this tabs folder, and within it, it has a layout file, index, and 2. And what the layout file represents is the relationship between the first screen, which is called tab 1, and the second screen, which is called tab 2. And additionally, it has the information icon in the top right of the header on the first screen, which you can see when I click on it, it goes to that modal. And what it's saying in the code here is pretty much just that in the right header for the index screen, aka the first screen, we want to have this information icon that takes me to the modal. So that is representing both tab 1 and tab 2. And if we were to add in another screen, which we wanted on the bottom here, the bottom navigation, we would put it within this tabs folder. And just as an example of this, we can duplicate this file, or actually I'll have to create a new one, and we'll just call this 3.tsx. But really the name, it doesn't matter that much. It would if you're actually creating something for real, but we'll just copy this code over into 3, and we'll just say tab 3. And then within layout, we would just copy this, and instead of the name being 2, we would say 3 here. So this is where the name of the file actually comes into play. But again, it doesn't matter what you call the file, just make sure that it makes sense to you. So we'll save this, and I might need to update the app itself, reload it, that is. And then we can see that it says tab 2, which is actually 3. It's only saying tab 2 because I have tab 2 right there. And I also, within the file itself, it says tab 2 somewhere. Well, it says 2 there. But anyways, that is how you would do that. Now, we don't really need that, so I'm just going to delete it. And we can then go into the outer layout file, which is in app. And really all that this is saying is it's putting together the relationship between this tabs stack, so all of these screens, and then the screens within the app folder, which is the modal itself. And then we also have additional screens such as this not found screen, and this gets hit whenever you go to a route which doesn't exist within the application or within this folder structure. So that is pretty much it for the route here. And it's the same thing if we were to create another file here and we didn't want it within tabs, but we'd want to access it in some other way, like we do with the modal, then we would just put it in here. So that is that, but I think that we should also go over how to get to different screens. So within index here, I'll just make sure I'm on tab 1, and I am. I'm going to import Pressable from React Native, and I'm also going to import Router from Expo Router, and we'll have that autocomplete for us. Now we'll just put it here. We'll say Pressable, and on press we want to say router. I don't know why it did a false import like that, but router.push to tabs 2. And within this we'll have some text which just says go to tab 2. And now whenever I press on that within the app, it'll take me to tab 2. And that is pretty much that. So that's how you would do navigation via button or via pressable component within your project. And then we also have different functions that we can use instead of push. So let's just look at those. So back, that's pretty obvious. It's just taking you to the previous screen you were on. Can go back. This returns a Boolean, so it's saying can you go back or not. And then we also have navigate and replace and set params, but we won't actually be using those in this project. And I'm just going to delete these components and their imports, And now I think that we are ready to get started. So one thing I forgot to do is go back into the layout file underneath tabs and get rid of this this screen for 3, that 3 file that was once created. So now that that's done, let's install a package called React Native Paper, and what this is it's a component library. So people have created a bunch of different components that you can use within your apps, and it just saves you a whole bunch of time whenever you're actually creating a real app. So that's why we're using it. And now that we have that installed, we can go into our file called babelconfig.js, and I have brought up the documentation. It's under their getting started documentation, but pretty much if we add this within the Babel config, it will make the imports for React Native Paper more optimized, which will lead to smaller bundle sizes. So that's all we'll need to do there. And then we can go into the main level layout. So in the app folder, go to layout. And within here, we can import paper provider from React Native Paper. And then in the root layout nav, above the theme provider, we're going to say paper provider. And then we'll just move everything into that. And here for the value, for the theme provider, we're just going to use the dark theme. And we can get rid of the color scheme there. And now let's go create our theme. So if you're in the documentation, you just scroll down and go to the next page, but I've already brought it up, and this is about halfway down the page, maybe a quarter of the way down the page, something like that. And I use these values for the primary and secondary colors. So I'm going to use the theme for the dark mode, or in other words, the dark theme. I'll just copy this, and then within my project, I'm going to go to the root of the project, add a new file. We'll call this theme.ts, and we just need to export that as a variable. And then within the layout, we're going to go up here and import it. So we'll import theme from @theme, and we can get rid of the unused imports there. Now for the paper provider, we'll add that as the prop. And there we go. And now we can go into tab 1, tab 2, and modal and just get rid of everything. And we can also import view from React Native. I should have imported it up here. My bad. So that is the modal screen, and we'll do the same for tab 1 and tab 2. With that done, I think it'd be useful to add the data that we're going to be using for all the stocks into the project. So again, in the root of the project, we'll add a file, and this will just be called data.tsx. And within this, I'm just going to paste in the data that we're going to be using. We're just going to be exporting an array, and we're going to call that stocks. And then I have an interface here for searchable stocks, and it just has all of these different fields which exist within the objects of the stocks array. So that's that. And then we have stock prices, which just represent the prices over time for all of the different stocks within our stocks array. And then all of this stuff was just queries for my database to get all that data. So I'm going to delete this because we don't really need it. With the data now integrated into the project, we should rename the pages to something relevant, and we'll also add in relevant icons to the bottom navigation bar. So in getting started, let's go back to the layout underneath the tabs folder, and here we'll change the tab bar icons as well as the title and also the names. Except for index, we don't need to change the name there, but here for the title under the index screen, we'll change this to home. And also we're going to change the type, well, the icon type from Font Awesome to Material Icons. So what I'm going to do is highlight all instances of Font Awesome and press Control D, and that will select all of the different instances where that exists. And I'm just going to replace that with Material Icons. And then we have to go down here, and this is no longer Font Awesome but Material Icons, so I did miss one. Actually, we don't even need this. We aren't going to be using the modal, so let's just get rid of this. And then here, instead of the tab bar icon being code for the index, we're going to say that it is home. And then for the one for 2 here, we need to change this to star outline, I believe it is. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, and then instead of calling this 2, I'm going to call this Watchlist. So I'm going to change the title first, and then I need to change the file name from 2 to Watchlist. And then I have to change the name, so Watchlist. And now we should probably go into here and just say, instead of tab 2 screen, Watchlist screen. And there we go. Now let's create some new files outside of tabs. So what we're going to create now is a file for the search screen. So I'm just going to call this search, and we'll copy down what we have in the modal and paste it into the search screen and just rename it search screen. So that is that. And actually, I'm just going to repurpose the modal now. We're going to call this the ticker, but here's the thing with this one. We're going to rename it and make sure to add in these brackets. So this is kind of like the not found, but it's a bit different. So just to explain, let's rename this to ticker screen. But just to explain, it'll take a dynamic input from the route. So what we do is we import use local search params from Expo Router. So what we say is we want to destructure what we get from use local search params, and within this will be ticker because that's what we named our file. And then here, let's also import text so that you guys will understand. We'll import that from React Native Paper. And then within our view here, we'll have text, which just shows the ticker. All right. So now, if we're in something like index, and we have a pressable component, so I don't know what I'm doing there. I can just import it there, and then let me import router as well. And I need to import text. So here I'll say router.push, and then we'll just add in a ticker. So this is the ticker for Apple, the computer company, and as you can see over here, we don't have a file named Apple. So, you would think it'd take you to not found, but because we have ticker here, it'll take us to that page. And here I'll just say press me. And there we can see it on our screen, so I'll just press that and it'll take us to ticker, that screen. So we can go back, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to register this ticker screen, or actually I guess it's already registered because it was the modal, but what I need to go do now as well is just register this search screen within the app layout file. So I'll go in here, and this is no longer named modal, so presentation, do we want it to be modal? I don't know. We'll call this ticker though. And here, instead of the presentation being a modal, we'll just say header shown is going to be false, like the one above it. And we're going to do the same thing with the search screen. So I'm just copying and pasting that, and I'm going to put it above. So there we go. If we press that, we get taken to the ticker screen. And just to show you that it's dynamic, we could do Microsoft as well. We press on that, and it'll give us Microsoft. So really what we're going to do is we're going to show whenever the user types in whatever their stock is, we're going to give them valid options, and then whenever they click on that option, it's going to have the ticker, and then we're just going to pass that ticker into the screen, and from this screen we'll pull that data for that stock using that ticker, and then we'll just show it. So it's pretty simple. I think we should go back to the home screen and start to build out things there. So if you remember correctly, at the top of the home screen we had an input where the user could click on it and they'd be able to search for whatever stock they wanted, but that would take them to the search screen. So let's add that in first because it came in at the top, and really where we want to go is the layout file and the tabs folder. And within the options object, we can add a key value pair for a header, which is that input. It'll be that input component. So here we'll say header is going to be equal to a function which will return a pressable component, and that should auto import. And then up top we'll just import text input from React Native Paper. Now within this pressable component, we'll have that text input. And now we need to add some styles to both of these components. So on the pressable component, we'll add in the style prop, and we'll say we want the width to be 100%. We want padding horizontal to be 20. And we want the top padding to be 50. Now for this pressable component, we'll fill in the onPress prop as well. And we're going to need to import router from Expo Router, and luckily we have some imports already. So we just need to go down here and say router.push to the search screen. And we'll do the same thing here, where if the user presses in on this, we will push them to the router screen, or sorry, the search screen. So we'll just do a demonstration in the app right now, and it takes us to that search screen, and they can go back like that. So now let's add in an icon to the text input, as well as a placeholder for some text. So the placeholder here will read search stocks. We're going to want this to be disabled, and we'll say that the mode is outlined. Now we'll fill in the left prop, so this will be a text input icon. So .icon, and this has a prop called icon, and for this we'll say magnify. So that part is all good, and now we can go into the index file and we can start to change things here. So the first thing I'm going to change is the name of the function. It's no longer going to be tab 1 screen, but rather it will be the home screen. And we can get rid of the pressable component. So let's say for the view, we need it to have a style which is equal to flex of 1, or it has this property flex of 1. We'll also give it a padding top of 30. And instead of this saying press me, it'll say available stocks. And we need to give this some styles as well. We'll give it a font weight of bold, a margin left of 5, and a margin bottom of 5 as well. And now for the variant of this text, we will say that it is title large. And now we can render in a flat list to render the data that we have in that data file. So that just auto imported. So we don't need to import that, but what we do need to import is the data. So import stocks from data. And here for the data prop, we can add that in as the data that we're going to be needing. Stocks. And then here we need to fill out the key extractor, and then it'll be something like this, item.ticker. And finally, we need to say render item, and we can destructure here. So I believe it's just item, and then you can get the index as well, but I don't think we'll need that. We'll have a pressable component here. And then whenever this is clicked, or whenever it's pressed, we need to send them to that, that ticker screen. So we'll say on press needs to be router.push to item.ticker. And we're getting this little error here because we need to prepend it with a slash. So we'll do something like this. And now we can start building out each component for each stock. So let's just go and look at the data, which we actually want to be displaying, at least in the cards themselves. So what we're going to want is the ticker, the price, the company name, the change percentage, and the image. So pretty much the top 5 things. That's what we'll want to be displaying. So let's go back and start to build that. So let's start off with the image. I've got to see if I need to import Expo Image or not. So we'll say image from Expo-image. Okay, we do need to import that. So copy the following command into your terminal and install Expo Image. And now within Pressable, we can render the image. So we first need to give it the source prop, which will be item.image, and that will point it to the URL for that image. Then we'll give it a style, which is a height of 50 and a width of 50. And now we'll say content fit is going to be contain. So there we have the list of all the stock images, but now we need to add in the text and the price. So let's get started in adding in that ticker. So that'll be a text component, and we'll say item.ticker, and we'll do the same thing with the company name, item.company name, and then its price and price change percentage, something like that. We'll just type in price here. Yeah, so price, we'll actually need price change percentage and price change. And we'll put those on the same line, actually. So we can do something like that. Item.price change percentage. Okay, so now we need to make this look pretty. Where we need to do that is on the pressable component itself. We'll add in some styles here. We need to first change the flex direction. So we'll say flex direction needs to be row. Then we'll give it a margin vertical of 10. And we'll give it a padding horizontal of 10. We'll give each of these a height of 60. Now we need to wrap the like text components into views. So we want to wrap the ticker and company name in its own view. And we'll do the same thing for the price and price change. And then we're going to wrap both of these views in their own view as well. And now we need to say for this view that we want the style to be pretty much the same as up here. So we want it to have the same flex direction. And we want to justify the content such that it is spaced between. Okay, and it didn't change anything because we need to alter the width here. So what we're going to go do is import the use window dimensions from React Native. And up top, we're going to destructure that function call, get it, and get the width from that. Use window dimensions, okay. And now here, for this view, underneath the image, we need to say that the width is going to be equal to width minus 75. And next, we'll add in a style of padding left of let's say 15. See how that looks? Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now we're going to need to change the format of the text. So for the top layers of text, i.e. the ticker and the price, we're going to give them a variant of title medium. And we'll also give it a style where the font weight is bold. So I'll just copy that and add it onto the price here. And clearly prices, they don't go to the 4th decimal place. So let's go and create a utility function to format the different currencies. So I'll go and create a new folder. It'll be called utils, and within that folder, I will create a file called format currency. So for this, we'll want to export a function called format currency, which will take in a price, currency, and rest. So if there is no price, we'll return an empty string. If the type of price is equal to string, we'll need to convert that to a number. And then finally, we need to create a formatter object and then format the passed in price. So let's go back to index and import that. And here for price, we'll pass that in so that we say format currency, passing in the price. Now we need to format the percentage, so we can just use the toFixed method here, and we just need to pass in 2, and that will be a percentage, so we can add in a percentage sign after that. And finally, we should add in the variance for the companies and the price changing, both of these text components. So we'll say that the variant is going to be equal to label medium. And I'll copy that here. And we'll also add in some style for the color of the text. So we'll say color should be equal to a condition, which states that if the item price change is less than 0, it needs to be red. Else, if the item price change is greater than 0, it needs to be light green. Otherwise, we'll just say auto. I think that I would prefer to have the price change and the price rightmost aligned. So what I'm going to do for this view, which holds it, is give it a style, and I'm going to say align items, and it'll be flex end. I think that that looks pretty good, and now whenever a user clicks on something, clicks on one of these, it'll take them to that stock itself. So what we can do is we can extract this component, we can extract this code into its own component. So that's what I'm going to do now. And while we're at it, we can just get rid of these styles here. So let's go into our project, and in the app folder, we already have a components folder here, so no need to create that. And we can call this component something like stock card. So I'll just name it that. So I'm just going to do something like this, and we will just take everything here, return it here, and then we'll go over here, and I'm going to auto import these, so do control period and add the imports for all of these. Okay, we're going to have to do it manually for Expo Image. Import view, import text from React Native paper, and we'll need to import a router from Expo Router, and here we'll have ticker, which will be a string. We'll have company name, which will also be a string. We'll have price, which will be a number. Then we'll have price change, which will be a number as well, and price change percentage, which will also be a number. Okay, so we just need to do this. And everywhere you see item followed by a period, just do Control D until they're all selected, and then hit backspace. Also, we need image. I forgot that one. So we'll say ticker. Underneath that, we'll have an image, which is a string, and image. Okay. Now for the width, we need to import that alongside format currency. So import format currency, and here we need to say use window dimensions, and we'll just get the width from that. I'm just going to go back into index and get rid of the unused imports, and I'll import the component that we just created, the stock card. So we'll do that underneath stock. We'll say import stock card, and here when we need to render an item, we'll say stock card. So there we have that. Now let's go and fill out the search stocks screen. We're going to want to go to the layout file in the app folder. And in here we have this stack screen called search, and we're going to want to modify this object. So there's a field which you can fill out here. It's called header title. And this will expect a function which returns a component. So the component which we'll want to return is the text input from React Native paper. So I'm going to import that and return it here. Text input. And when we go to that screen, we see that text input is up at the top, right next, well, it's on the header. So now we need to style the text input. So we'll give it a width of 88%. Width will be we'll give it the same mode, so it'll be outlined. Then we'll give it the same placeholder of search stocks. And we'll also give it the autofocus prop. And currently it looks a little big, so we'll use the dense prop to make it a bit smaller. And on an iPhone, it will autofocus, so whenever the user clicks on the initial input, the keyboard will come up on this screen. But for whatever reason, it's not working on my Android. But regardless, let's get into whenever the user actually inputs items or inputs text into the the text input component, we want to save that in a stateful variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a context provider. So I'm going to need to import create context from React. We'll say that we want to export a variable called store context, and we'll call that create context function. And now within this, we're going to need two different stateful variables as well as two functions for those. So the first one is going to be for the text input, and then the second one is going to be for the stocks which have been filtered. So let's define those first and what those will look like. So here we'll say search query, which will be a string. Then we'll say set search query, which will be a function, which is just void, and this will take in a string. So str string. And then in here we will have to define the same things, but we'll just do this for now. So this will be empty string, and you separate these via commas. This, we could just do this. Then we're going to need search stocks, which will be, well, this is where that in that data file we have the searchable stock interface. This is where we'll import it. So let's go back and import that. And we'll just hope that it autocompletes. So it's a searchable stock. There we go. And then we have set search stocks, which will be a function which takes in stocks, which are searchable stocks, and that's going to be an array, and it returns void. And now let's just do the same thing that we did before, where this will be an empty array, and this will be an empty function. Okay, now in root layout nav, we need to create some stateful variables. So I'm just going to call this search query, and set search query is going to be equal to useState, and we'll assign that an empty string. And we'll do the same thing, just switching it to the search stocks and set search stocks. And we'll assign that an empty array. Now inside the theme provider, we'll say store context dot provider. And now for the value prop, we are going to pass in search query, or we need another object there, so we'll pass in search query, set search query, searched stocks, and set search stocks. And here it's giving us this error because we did not define this as a searchable stock array. Now that should clear that up. And here I'm just going to actually change this to be text because that looks a bit cleaner. So now that that's done, let's go back to our text input, and we'll say on change text, and we'll get the text from here. And then within the function, we'll first set the search query to the text, and then we need to search for the valid stocks which match with the query string. So let's go into utils, and in a real application, this is where you'd be calling an API, which usually has some sort of autocomplete endpoint, which will probably point to some sort of database, maybe Elasticsearch or TypeSense or something like this. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into utils, and we'll create a new file here, and it will just be called search stock. So in this, we want to import stocks. Then we'll export a function called search stocks, and this is going to take text as an input. And if we don't have any text, we will return an empty array. Otherwise, we'll say return stocks.filter I such that i.ticker.match a new regex or regular expression where it is equal to text and it ignores the casing. Now we wanted to filter that for the ticker, or if it also matches for the company name, we want to do the same. So we'll just copy this here, and I think I forgot to close that. I did forget to close that, so I'll do something like that and get rid of that. And this should give us that autocomplete functionality that we want. So we'll go back into layout here, and this is where we'll call search stocks, but first we'll create a variable called stocks here, and then we'll call that search stocks function, passing in the text. That'll give us all of the stocks which match the text, and then that's when we're going to say set search stocks to the stocks. So that will give us all of the available stocks for the given input in this stateful variable called search stocks. So we'll need to go into the search file to actually bring that in. So let's go to that page and we'll see it in action. We first want to do is import use context from React. Then we're going to destructure this, and we're going to pass in our store context, so I'm going to auto import that. And from this we want to get the search query and the search stocks. And now depending on if we have searched stocks or we don't, we want to display something different to the user. So let's take care of the case where there is no search query and there are no searched stocks. So if that's the case, we want to display to the user that they should search for some. So let's say if there is no search query and searched stocks dot length is equal to 0, then we'll return this view where it has some text in it. So let's import text from React Native Paper. And this text will say something like search stocks. So we'll give it a variant equal to title large, and we'll give it a style where the font weight is bold. Okay, so that's if the user has not searched for anything and we have no searched stocks. But what if the user has searched for something and nothing comes back? Well, we'll just copy this and we'll paste it beneath it and handle that case. So if there is a search query and the searched stocks length is equal to 0, you want to say no stocks available, or maybe no stocks found. So we've handled both cases where there is nothing or they've started typing into the text input but nothing comes back. So that leaves us with a final case where we do have stuff in the search query and that returns stocks. So what we're going to do is we'll return a flat list here, and that will be, the data from that will come from searched stocks. So we'll say data is equal to searched stocks. We'll get the key extractor to be the ticker, so item and return item.ticker. And then we need to say render item, and we'll destructure it to get the item. And then we need to import stock card and pass in all of those props. Or you can actually do something like this. Not key, but ... item, and that should work. So let's give it a test. We'll say Apple, and anything with AP comes back, so capital and Apple, and then we come back here, search stocks. Now I don't know if anything has Z. Okay, ZM, no stocks found. So it's capturing all of those cases. Now, whenever the user clicks on something within this, so let's just type in end for NVIDIA, they can also have no problem scrolling up and down, but let's choose NVIDIA for this one, and the user clicks into it, and they get taken to this screen. So let's start to build out this screen. So let's go to the ticker screen, and I have it here, and let's get rid of the styles here and start to build, let's import what we need, which is the safe area view. We're going to use that component instead of view here. And I spelled safe wrong. Now I'm just going to do Control D there and replace it with safe area view. Now for the styles, I'm going to say flex 1, margin horizontal will be 20, and we'll give it a margin bottom of 10. Now within this, at the top of the screen, we want to have a back arrow, also called a chevron left, and on the right side of the screen, we want to have a star. So we'll need to import those, and those are going to be material community icons. So import material community icons, and that's going to be from at Expo vector icons. And I spelled that wrong. We're going to want to put those into their own view. So we'll import that and we'll put that there. Now let's render out the icons. So the first one is going to be called chevron left. So name is equal to chevron left dash left. Color is going to be white, and then size will be 40. And we'll just copy and paste this, and we're going to change this to star dash outline for right now. Now for the view, we'll add in some styles, and the first one we're going to say is that flex direction needs to be row. We'll give the view a padding vertical of 25, and then we need to say justified content is space between. Okay, so now whenever the user tries to press on an icon, nothing's going to happen. So what we need to now do is import Pressable from React Native. And for this one, let's just get the pressable components down, and then we'll handle the on-click events or on-press events. So we'll wrap each of these in a pressable component. Let's save that. And now we need to import router from Expo Router. And for this first one, we'll say onPress, and we'll say router.goBack, or router.back. So now it'll take them to that screen, which they were previously on. And for this one, the star outline, we'll just hold off on that one for right now. So next thing that we'll do is create a function to get the stock data for the current ticker. So let's go and navigate to the search stocks file, and we'll export a new function called select stock, and it's going to take in some text, which will be a string, and based on that string we will filter the stocks. So we'll say const stock is equal to stocks.filter I such that I.ticker is equal to text. And now if stock is present, then we need to return stock sub 0, otherwise we're going to return null. And while we're here, we'll do the same thing for the pricing data. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. We'll say select stock prices. And now we can go back to the ticker file and import both of those. And then within this, we'll say const stock is equal to select stock, passing in the ticker as a string. And we'll do the same thing for stock prices. Select stock prices, and that will get us the data for the currently selected stock. Now I need to click into one of these stocks. We'll just choose Google here. And now we can start to build out that label that was up at the top and all those different charts. So let's import FlatLists for that. And beneath this view, we can put the FlatList component. For the data, we'll have an array where we have just a single object within it. And I need to wrap this in those curly braces. We aren't going to need a key extractor, so we just need to say render item, and then we can just render out a view here. Now up at the top, we want to have the company image. So we'll put this in a view because it's going to be horizontal. So it'll be the image, then the ticker, and then the name. So within this, we'll need the image, and we're going to have to import that from Expo Image. And the source here is going to be equal to stock.image. And I guess we should say something like this: wrap the flat list in a condition where we say stock ? And if there is a stock, it'll display. Otherwise, we'll have some text saying no stock available or stock not available. And we can get rid of that text right there. Okay, now we need to fill out the rest of the props for the image. So we'll put that there. We need the style to be equal to a height of 50 and a width of 50. And we want the content fit to be contain. Next, we need to add some text for the ticker. So maybe we should have just moved that up, but it doesn't really matter. We'll say stock.ticker. And we'll do the same thing for stock.company name. Okay, now for the view that holds both of these, we'll say that we need to give it a style where the flex direction is row. And we need to wrap this text in a view of its own so that it is like this. Then we'll give the view a style where we give it padding left of 20 to create some space between it and the image. Then we'll give the ticker the variant of title medium. And we're going to give it a style of font weight is bold. Font weight bold. Alright, that looks good. Now just do the same thing, except for the variant, we need it to be label medium, and we're not going to give the company name a style. So that is all good there. Collapse that view, and underneath of that, we'll create another view. Within this, we'll have some text for the stock price, so stock.price. And underneath this, we'll have the same text that we had in the stock card. So I'm just going to go over there and pull it. Might as well just pull all of this. And you could argue that we could put all of this into its own component, but I'm not going to. So we'll just fill out the rest of this. We're going to change the variant, but let's just change all of these for right now. And for this view, let's give it some padding top of 20. Now for the stock price, we're going to change it from title medium to headline large. And for the text underneath it, we'll change this to label large. Underneath this view, we'll have the charts for the pricing. So let's add in a view underneath it, and we'll give it the same style with a padding top of 20. And then we're gonna, because it's gonna be a chart, we need to add a charting package. So let's go and open our terminal. And what I'm gonna use for this project is something called React Native Gifted Charts. Within this, it has the installation instructions. So I'm just gonna copy these and paste them into the terminal, then run that command. And now I'm going to import that. So what I need to import is line chart from React Native Gifted Charts. So before adding our line chart, we should go back into search stocks because the select stock prices, we're actually using the wrong data here, so we need to import stock prices, and then that's what we need to filter on. And then if we do have a stock, we need to return the prices array. So now we can go back to the ticker screen. Now I'm going to paste the line area chart code into this view, and we'll go ahead and save this and go through all the different props. And typically, for whatever reason, I've got to restart the app. And I'll just go back to Google, and there is the chart. So let's just go through the props and what they'll be. So first, we want to state that it's an area chart, passing in our data to the data prop, and rotate the labels. So that rotates the x-axis labels, and we're going to give them some extra height right now just because they're getting cut off. So let's say 40 and see what that does. Okay, 40 doesn't look too bad, so we'll just go with that. Hide data points, that just hides the data points on the chart. Spacing, kind of obvious. Color, same thing. And the rest of these are pretty much obvious, except for initial spacing. So that's dealing with this side of the chart, the initial part of the chart and where it starts. And these are the rest of the props. So let's just go to pointer config. And what pointer config does is it deals with this pop-up and actually showing the price whenever the user hovers over the chart. So you're going to want to give it all of these different values for these different keys. And then when it comes to the pointer label component, we already have everything that we need imported, but we're going to wrap the text in a view. So these are all of the different components and styles that you will need. So I'm going to collapse this and get started on building out the flat list items that the user can click here. So it'll be like the history and the description. So let's scroll up and create the options which we want to have. And we'll just put this in its own variable called options. And the first one will be description. And the second one will be historical metrics. Now underneath this view, we can create a flat list component where the data is equal to options. And we're going to have to use the key extractor here. So we'll say item, and we'll just specify item. And then we need to render each item, getting the item. And we want to render a button from React Native Paper. So we'll have to go up to our imports and search for React Native Paper and then import button. Now we will render out the button. And we have to render it like this. So say button, and in the middle we'll have the item. And here we need to say that we want this to be horizontal. Now for the flat list, I'm going to give it a style where the margin top is 80. And that'll bring the whole screen down. So I'm going to go back up here and we can actually change this back to what it was, which is a value of 20. And that'll just look a lot better. So now let's change some of the styling for the button. We'll give it a style with a margin right of 10. And then depending on which items actually selected, we want to change how it looks. So let's go and create a stateful variable up here. We'll call this selected option, and we actually want to put this up top so that it is defined whenever we do this. So selected option, and we'll say set selected option, and we need to say use state, and we'll just define it or initialize it to options index 0, the value there. And I'm just going to import that, move this up top. And now down below, whenever a button is pressed, we can say that we want to change it to the item. So we'll say set selected option to the current item, and then we need to say mode is equal to, well, it depends on what the selected item is. So if item is equal to selected item or selected option, then it will be contained. Otherwise, it will be outlined. So description is currently selected, so that is why it is the way it is, and vice versa. Okay, so because description is selected, we need to start to render out the description beneath it, beneath those buttons. So underneath the flat list, we'll say if the selected option is equal to historical metrics, historical metrics. And I'm going to go respell this. I'll change the casing there. Historical metrics. If that's the case, we'll just render an empty bracket here, and then we'll get to that once we're done with the description. So within this view, we want to add in pretty much just text. So for this view, we'll give it a style, which has a margin top of 20. And then we're going to have text littered throughout this. So we'll just have text here, and this will say CEO. And then underneath this will be some text, which is actually the stock CEO. That's so we'll say stock.ceo. We just need to change the different variants here. So this variant will be title medium, and we'll give it a font weight of bold. And we'll do the same thing for exchange. So we'll say exchange and exchange. And I'm going to give this a margin top of 5. Now we'll do the same thing for sector. And industry. And the same thing for location and IPO date. And for this, we'll have to say stock.city, comma, stock.state. And IPO date. Or I'll just say IPO there. IPO date. And last but not least, we will do the description. So there we have that. Now we need to do the historical metrics. So I'm just going to close this one up, and I'll change this to a view as well. And we're going to do something similar to what we did before with the bar chart, or sorry, the line chart. But we're going to go and create our own component for this. So we'll call this bar chart. And within this, we're going to import bar chart from React Native Gifted Charts, and I'm giving this the alias of bar. And then we need to import the following components from React Native. We'll export the component, and it will need to take in the props of label, data, color, and style. Then we'll get the max value from the data, and we'll return a view with the styles which we'll create, and then the passed in styles from the props. Then likewise we'll render some text, which will render the label, and then we'll render the bar chart with all of these given props. And down below I'm going to create these styles, and I'll assign them these different values. So let's go back to Ticker and import that. And now let's go down to our condition in this view, and let's start to build out these different charts. So firstly, we'll give it the same style with a margin top of 20. So now I need to render out my bar chart, and we'll say that the color is going to be light blue. We'll say that the data is stock.return on equity, and for the label we'll say ROE. And there we have it. And we'll just continue to do these for the rest of the financial metrics. So next is return on capital employed, which will be light green. And you give that a label of ROCE. Next is revenue, which will be Dodger blue. Then we'll do earnings, which will be dark green. Then we'll do free cash flow, which will be maroon. And we'll give that the label of FCF. Next we'll do cash, which will be green. And then we'll do debt, which will be purple. Then we'll have gross profit margin, which will be orange. And finally, we'll do net profit margin, which will have a color of corn silk. And there we have it. We have this screen created. Now the only other thing that we need to do is to enable liking this particular stock. So how we do that is we need to go back to the layout, which is in the app folder, because that is where we have our store context. So let's go there. And within the store context, we need to create two new key value pairs. The first one is going to be liked stocks, which will be a string array. And the second one will be called update liked stocks, which will take an operation, and that will either be add or it will be delete or del. And I'm going to put this at the beginning, but it also needs to take in a ticker, which will be a string, and that will return void. And like stocks will just be an empty array, and update like stocks will be an empty function. Now we need to create a new stateful variable. So I'm just going to do this, and we'll just do something like this, like stocks. Change this so that it is like that. And this will be a string array. And now we need to create a function, which I'm going to call update like stocks. And that's going to need to take in the ticker as an argument, and op, which will be add or del. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to save it to the user's device. So in order to do that, we need to install a package. So open up that terminal. And then copy in the following, well actually, let's just, and then copy the following command into your terminal and run it. So we're going to be importing React Native async storage /async storage. And let's go and import that. Async storage. All right, it might just be a default import. Now let's go down back into update like stocks. And with this, we just need to update the like stocks array based on what the user has passed in as the ticker, or what we pass in as the ticker, and also the operation. So let's say const prev stocks is equal to the like stocks. Then we'll create a new variable called new stocks, and this will depend on the operation. So we'll say if the op is equal to del, then we need to filter prev stocks such that it doesn't contain the ticker passed in. So symbol such that symbol is not equal to ticker. And for the else statement, we'll do this. We will say prev stocks, and let me spell that correctly. And then at the beginning, we'll have the ticker. Now we'll create a try catch block, and if we get in the error section or the catch section, we'll say set like stocks to prev stocks. Now here in the try section, we'll say await async storage dot set item, and the key for this will be watchlist, and we need to stringify these. And these being the new stocks, so we'll just do this. And of course I need to make this asynchronous if I'm going to wait that. And then once that's done, we need to set the like stocks to the new stocks. Next we'll need to use the useEffect hook, and we will only need to run this once, so we'll pass in no dependencies. And then we'll create a function here, and it will be asynchronous. Get like stocks is what we'll call it. And here we'll say stocks is equal to await async storage dot get item. and the item is going to be under the key Watchlist because that's what we're updating up here. And if we have a watch list or these stocks, we will set like stocks to JSON.parse these stocks. And now we just need to add in our values here. So let's see, we have like stocks, which will be like stocks, and then update like stocks. So those are all good. And one thing that I forgot to do is call this in the useEffect hook. So just make sure to do that. And now we need to go back to the ticker screen so that we can handle whenever the user likes that or dislikes it. So let's go to ticker, and it'll be up at the top. So it's going to be this pressable component. And we're going to need to use the useContext hook. So we'll say const equals useContext, and that will auto import. And then we're going to use the store context, which will also auto import. And then we'll say like stocks as well as update like stocks. Now here for the name of the star outline, we're going to say like stocks dot includes the ticker. So what is it? I think it's just ticker here. If it includes the ticker as string, then it needs to be a star. Otherwise, it can be a star outline. And now for the onPress event, we can do something like this, where we say onPress, and we'll have the same condition, where it's like, if it includes it, then we'll say delete, otherwise we'll say add. So if like stocks dot includes ticker as string, return update like stocks with so this is, it does include it, so we want to delete it. Del otherwise we'll just add it into the like stocks. So copy this and we'll say add. So if we click on that or we unclick it, then that should go to our watch list. So let's go back to our watch list and start to fill out this screen, our last screen. So we'll go to watch list, and from here we're going to need a flat list along with the store context and use context. So from our context, we need to get the like stocks. So const liked stocks is equal to use context, passing in the store context. And now we say if liked stocks and like stocks, well, it's always going to be there. So like stocks dot length is greater than 0. We'll return a view. Otherwise, we'll return this view, and we'll just say style equals styles.container. And within this, we'll have some text. So hopefully this will auto import by now. Yes. And within this, we'll say you have no stocks, or actually we don't need the you have. We'll say no stocks on watch lists. And for this, make sure to give it a style where the flex is 1. And then we'll return a flat list. And the data for this flat list, well, we're going to need the stocks from data. So import stocks from data, and we'll say data equals stocks.filter I such that like stocks dot includes I dot ticker. All right. Key extractor will just be the item itself. Well, item dot ticker, and then we need to render the item. So we'll get the item here, and that will be a stock card, and we'll just do this. All right, now we want the user to be able to left swipe on a stock to delete it. So what we're going to need to do is open up our terminal, and we're going to need to install some packages. So I've gone to Expo and looked at the add gestures documentation, copy down this command to install these packages and paste that in the terminal. Next, you're going to want to do the same thing for this Babel plugin. And while that's loading, go to babel.config.js, and you're going to want to copy these into the Babel configuration file, which I've already done. Once that's done, shut down your development server and then restart it with the command npx expo start-c. Now once that's done, import gesture handler root view in the layout file in the app folder. Now once we have this, we'll wrap the stack component in it, and we'll give this a style where the flex is 1. Now that that's done, let's go back to the watch list and import swipeable from React native gesture handler / swipeable. And we're going to wrap our stock card in the swipeable component. And with that done, before we even do anything, I'm going to change the text here to what it was in our search screen. So here the variant is title large. So let's do that. Okay, let's go to watch list, and now we need to create a new function. Well, it's really going to be a new component, and we'll call it write actions. And it's going to take in 3 things. So the last thing is going to be an onPress event, which would be a void function, so we can bring that in. And then the 2 other things are going to be coming from swipeable. So let's go here to render write actions, and then it's progress and drag X. And then we will return write actions, and we're going to first see what this is. So we'll do this. And we need to import animated from React Native. And also, while we're at it, we need the pressable component. And drag X here, we're going to do the same thing. And that's going to come after progress. So progress, drag X, and we're going to return a pressable component where the onPress prop is the passed in onPress. So save that, and the write actions, we need to say that progress is the progress here. Then drag X, same thing. And for the onPress event, the user is going to be unliking a stock, aka deleting it. So we need to update like stocks. And we'll say update like stocks item.ticker, and then we'll say delete or del. Okay, now back up here, we need to have animated text, and it's going to say delete in it. And then here we're going to have a variable called scale, and we're going to say it's equal to drag x dot interpolate. And this has input range, which will be an array, and output range, which will be an array as well. And the input range is -100 to 0, and the output range is 0.7 to 0. Now we can add some styles to the pressable component. So the background color here is going to be red. We're going to justify content to the center, align items to the center, and give it a width of 90. Now for the text, we need to add some styles as well. We're going to say that the font weight is bold. The font size is going to be 22. The color is white. And we're going to say transform, passing in an array with an object, and this is where we pass in scale. Now when the user left mate, okay, what the fuck? Now when the user left swipes on a card, and by the way, I just restarted the app, so you might have to as well to get this to work. Anyways, when the user, they left swipe on a particular stock, they have this option to delete it from their watch list, and voila, it's gone. So we are done building this app, but before I go, I'd like to show you something that you can change within layout. So I've noticed on my iPhone that it doesn't look as good when you go to this screen, the search screen. It has the back button and it says tabs. So the fix for this is we're going to set the header back title visible, that field to false, and we'll just save that. Alrighty guys, so that's going to be it for the features in this video. Before we wrap it up, I want to go through the different features that you built in this video if you followed along to the end. So here on the home screen, we just have a list of all the available stocks in our quote-unquote database, and the user, they can click on a stock, they can like that stock, unlike that stock, they can see the price history, hover over it to get an accurate depiction of what it was in the past, view the description of the company, view different stuff about the company, such as the historical metrics and what sector it was in. And a slight note on this, in the beginning, the video that I showed, all of these bars, they had labels on top of them. Now I'm not sure what happened between version 49 and version 50 of Expo and React Native gifted charts, but for whatever reason, the top label component, it's something like that within the data field. Yeah, it's not working anymore. So don't really know what to say about that besides it's not working, but it works in version 49. So if you're doing anything legit, then maybe use version 49. I don't know. But anyways, going to search stocks, the user, they can search via a ticker, so AMZN, or they can search via a company name like Apple. And of course, they can go in here, like it, and they can also go to their watch list where they can either click in or delete. So that is it for this one. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have any comments down below, and until next time.